Hello, everybody. So it's Mandy from the Bubble Hub. I have great pleasure in welcoming Sam from the Elam Project to come and join me for a bit of just having a go on StreamYard. And Sam's not just with the Elam Project. Sam has many different hats. And the more I find out about Sam, the many more hats that she has. There is just so much to Sam. And she's really inspired me. So would you like to introduce yourself, Sam?
Yeah, sure. That was very complimentary, Mandy, and very overly done for sure. So my name's Sam. I live in Llandrindod, just down the road from you, Mandy, actually, or up the road. Lived here ever. Absolutely love where we live. Just so grateful for where we live, and because of that, try to do sort of as much as I can locally. Have a little 8-year-old boy in the corner who may or may not StreamYard bomb me at some point during this.
I can share in that with my 2-year-old. He's really on form today. Yeah. So I sort of, when did I first meet you? I think I probably first met you unknowingly in the Connected Generations, one of the meetings there, because not only are you part of the so I wonder if you, just before we go on to that, tell us a bit about the Eden Project for anybody that doesn't really know.
Yeah, sure. So I work for the Eden Project Communities team, which is kind of the community arm of the Eden Project that's down in Cornwall. So we have a whole range of what we call community network developers across the UK, whose job is to, I suppose, bring the Eden Project out there. So the Eden Project itself is all about connecting people with nature and each other, and I suppose our role is the each other bit. We work in community, so my role is Wales wide, and it's really about bringing people together locally to them to become active where they live in whatever they're passionate about. Our main sort of project is the Big Lunch, which is held every June, and that's an outdoor get together for neighbours and friends locally to where they live. Just to have a bit of food and drink with one another, with no aim other than to get together. And that Big Lunch is kind of permission to get out there, an excuse, if you like, to come together. And as a result of that, we see that brilliant things happen when people meet in the same space.
Oh, I'm sure I went to the Big Brunch a couple of years ago, or was it something to do with the Queen? I think I was pregnant with Polly. It was just before I had it. It was a really hot day, and we was on one of the projects that's local to us, and it was so fab. And actually, I did apply for the pack last year, but obviously with COVID and everything, that sort of did you run anything to do with the Big Brunch through COVID?
Yeah, we did. So it had to go, it was June, so it's always the first week of June. And it was at that time where we were sort of half in lockdown and half not. So you could do get-togethers outside at that point. But of course, people weren't feeling very secure to do that. So some people still did do the outdoor events and some people did it virtually. So we had two options this year. And usually we get just over 6 million take part in the Big Lunch across the UK. And still this year we managed to get just over 4, whether it was a virtual one or people were doing very small get-togethers where they live. But yeah, it's amazing how, a little invitation, when you get the pack, you'll see, there's an invitation pack in there and posters, and it almost gives people that excuse or permission to go knock on a door, because it's embarrassing. Nobody wants to go and knock on the neighbours' doors and say, do you fancy a cup of tea? It feels strange and weird to do, but suddenly when you're part of a bigger thing that's UK wide, you feel more confident to go and say, should we do this thing together and be part of something together?
It's really nice to bring communities together. I mean, my vision, what I was going to do is just have something really small. We've got like a patch of grass that's sort of like a communal area where they play football just where we are. And I just have this vision of just putting like some sort of pop-up tent marquee up and just going around the little local place we were and just seeing if people wanted to come and have a cup of tea and make some sandwiches together. And yeah, it's just one of them things. COVID's changed, I'd imagine COVID's changed what you're doing quite a lot. I've seen a lot of what you've been doing popping up on Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, the online stuff is never going to be able to replace the face-to-face stuff, is it? Nobody can wait till we can do all of that again. But what I've been sort of feel really positive and happy about is that lots of people haven't stopped still. They've not said, oh, we can't do that, so we can't do anything. They've made it work anyway, albeit online. Yeah, I mean, that what you might refer to is the Llandrindod Lift Me Up stuff. So that was a day of live sort of entertainment that we did last weekend. And because it came to me because I was really missing the nature of being live with people, and having to show up at a certain time somewhere. That's all gone. I'd be in my pajamas still at 4 PM if it wasn't for this. So I wanted, to get excited about being at an event with people at the same time, enjoying and experiencing the same thing at the same time. So the online version of that was the best thing that we could come up with. But
I think it was phenomenal, and how you brought people together and the ideas that you have. Because from one of the comments that I'm not using their words, but it's like you're an ideas machine, and it's what next is Sam going to do,
But lots of people say that, and that I'm really, really humbled because I'm not somebody that enjoys sort of the pedestal at all. You tend to find that people that want to get stuff done and just want to muck in, they kind of hate the limelight, and I'm definitely genuinely one of those people. But I would say that it's all well and good having the ideas, but the ideas can't happen unless other people take part in that. So and I could have come up with that idea, and unless people had said yes to taking part, it wouldn't have happened. So yes, I like to think of random things to get people sort of excited and involved and enthused and curious about stuff, that hook. But unless people say yes, it's nothing, is it?
And I think that's what you do so well, how you bring people together to share these ideas. And I think that then comes through the community aspect, that your community so well, and again, it's sort of bringing people together, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose because we're so close to, to where we live in our own streets and towns, you kind of just get, I work on sort of a gut feeling. I don't know about you, but I'm not a strategy person at all, so I could put pen to paper all day and flip chart it and go, where should we go next? But it's never worked for me. I've always relied on what I feel is right, and that's got me into hot water a lot of times because sometimes I've been way off the mark. But I think there's a lot to be said for just that gut instinct and feeling what's right and going that way. But then you asked me to put that to pen and paper, and no thanks.
Yeah, no, a lady of my heart. I don't know about yourself, but I literally go from idea to implementing it like the next day. And I agree. Sometimes it's kind of got me in trouble because when you're when you're doing projects, it's like you've got to have all of that information in between often, don't you?
Hello. Oh, hello.
Yeah. Go. Yeah. You're going to go and see Joshy now?
Daddy.
Come on, let me see Daddy.
Oh, bless him.
He's definitely on form today. But yeah, I mean, another, I heard about the Elam project, and Marie was, oh, you need to speak to Sam. You need to speak to Sam. And I was like, but I don't know what it means. And you just really explained beautifully what it means. And I think we're all sometimes we just need somebody to explain it to us, don't we? Because we could look it up on the internet, couldn't we? But it's so much nicer when someone's explaining how it is, how it works. And
yeah. I came across it. So I've been working for them for 5 years now. And before that, I was working for a charity called communiy in Llandrindod, which supports adults with learning disabilities. And I was there for 12 years. And my role there was about trying to connect people to have a community presence rather than just being a person in the town, but actually having meaning behind it. And I remember, just scrolling through the internet, I don't know, just coming up with ideas of things that we could do to increase that for people. And the big lunch came on my screen, and I knew instantly that was the right thing to do. So I didn't know anything about the Eden Project. I didn't even know that they were behind it at the time. It just looked like a fun event. I saw pretty bunting and people having cupcakes and tea, and that was me sold. So we did I did my first 2 years of the Big Lunch while I was working for that charity. And then it was after that you springboard into other things, don't you? So I was becoming more and more, I suppose, a bit defeated and sort of disappointed that the way that the world sort of segregates people into, for want of, I mean, we're in our boxes today, literally, aren't we, on StreamYard? But how society puts us in boxes, and I was working with people with a learning disability, but they had wants and desires and passions that were outside of the learning disability world that I was really passionate about. Why is it that a person with a learning disability is watching a film in a day service, and then an older person is in an older person's home watching probably a similar film, when you've got children's services doing their thing, mental health services doing their thing? And I just wanted everybody to be together, because we all have different needs and wants at different times. So that's kind of how I got into the Eden Project, really, was by accident, but slowly and surely getting what they were about and loving that.
Oh, I love it, fitting in a box. My Polly definitely doesn't fit in a box. So I suppose that's why I started my job, really, is because there wasn't a box for her to go in, but we are still a family, and there's certain things we kind of like to do. So I suppose that inspired me to sort of like that the services in our area, just a bit like you said, just in different areas, and it's just be really nice to collaboratively work together, because I think good stuff comes when we work together. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, my little boy was born with a cleft lip, and it's a minor thing, really, when in the world of things. And so when in his early days of being born, we were definitely part of sort of the cleft lip and palate forums, because I wanted to identify with people that knew what I was going through. And so we were definitely part of those. But I was also very aware that there's more to Isaac than just the cleft lip. And so it's really important to me, after having him, that he's part of his community. So I want the person at the leisure centre to know who he is, because that's likely to help him when he's older. I want to bring back the sort of nosy neighbour thing that seems to have gone by, because that is the community and how we look out for each other.
I just think you've just took the words out of my mouth. That is, I'm in a lot of groups to do with Polly, and initially I needed to connect with them to understand her a bit more. And I have debated on moving, and it still is on my radar to be able to get her the support that she needs. But actually, when I looked at the world that I live in and the place that I live in, people wanted to help and wanted to support us. And I just thought, I'm probably looking in the wrong areas for the support that I need, because although people don't understand that, they're still there for you. So it's a bit of my mission to stay living local, stay living where I live. And again, that was another passion of mine, to just, give. Sometimes it's like giving the community the permission to share with me my journey with Polly. Because sometimes you just want to wrap them up in cotton wool, but I want my daughter to have as much of independence as she can, to have what life she can, what life experiences she can, as much as anyone else does. And that's going to, it is quite tricky, trying to be able to give her all these opportunities, because caring's really tough. But behind it, there's a little girl that just wants to be loved, and that's
absolutely, yeah. And people there that want to give that back, but maybe just don't know how to. People are worried, aren't they, about saying the wrong thing or using the wrong term. And I've always tried to be quite open about that, because people still use the term sort of clefty, and they still use the term hair lip, and and some people get, on the forums, they get very offended with things like that, but I take that with a pinch of salt, and just say it's part of people trying to understand and just not knowing the way in. So the more we can enable people to do that, the better for us all.
As well, I think people are trying to understand as well, and I've sort of done a bit of a U-turn, because I often have had people say, oh, well, how long's Polly got to live? And I was like, that isn't really a conversation I've ever had with the doctors, because of deemed as okay. So they're you know, but what I've now realised is perhaps somebody's asking me because they know of somebody similar to Polly and don't feel that they can ask the person maybe that they know, you know, and
Yeah, that's
we
a
are
really nice way
curious.
to think of it.
And you know, I don't really mind people asking, to be honest. But it's kind of quite nice when they know you and they ask, you know. But again, I found perhaps when I first had Polly, people got quite upset because obviously I couldn't, all the way through my pregnancy, I couldn't say Polly was fine. In fact, I didn't even know if I was going to have a baby. You know, and then people don't know what to say, and then they sort of stay away from you, and they don't mean to. It's just they're really upset, and I kind of get that, you know.
Yeah.
And there's no like, it's Polly's story is a hard story. But you know, she's got plenty of life and living in her, and she's just so sweet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's but you need that community of people, sort of, you know, that regular community of people to know and understand that, don't you? I
I think
remember.
education, I feel a bit like, I know Polly's really complex, but the more I educate people and tell people and create that safe space for questions, you know, realistic questions maybe, but just questions that are in an okay space, so that they can
Yeah,
act.
I've watched your live streams, and I've told you it before, but I just love how open and welcoming they are, and you're not afraid to tackle the really serious issues, but you do it in such a friendly way that, you know, if somebody watching just can't help but then feel like you're so approachable, and to open up a conversation that perhaps they've always wanted to, or those thoughts, you know, that you get in your head and you think, oh gosh, is it inappropriate to say that? You know, we just need, it's all permission, isn't it? You know, permission to
I suppose my
speak out.
mindset has changed as well through my job. It's you know, a lot of bad stuff's happened, but what's the learning, you know? Because the learning is probably the most valuable bit, because we can all get engulfed with what's not great, you know. But I really try my very hardest to look at the positives. And I have, without Polly, I have just got the most enriching job. I've met the most amazing people. I would not be doing this, you know. So I just feel Polly has brought me, you know, it's tough, but a lot of joy, a lot of experiences. I've had to stand up for my daughter where I wouldn't myself. And it's, yeah, I've learned a lot. She's given me strength.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So you're also part of the connected generation, aren't you? And for anyone that wouldn't know, I wonder if you just sort of, because that's coming to an end now, isn't it? Just sort of explain a little bit what that's been about.
Yeah. So I'm not an expert in it by any means. So I've only been involved for the last few months, and it's been going for 3 years now. So it's a project supporting people over 50, which seems bizarre. You know, talking about labels and things. You know, it's almost talking like, you know, that it's life is done at 50, and it's only just starting really for a lot of people. But it's supporting people over 50 with you know, any needs that they have, and in a particular, to have sort of a voice and control, and also connections with their communities. And my role in that has been to help Zandra really to develop some. Well, we did some online courses because of COVID, but it was really about that community aspect of it. So I can't take credit at all for the project, but we had a lot of fun sort of creating, like we did subjects like how to engage people in your community project, how to use Zoom, just things that break down barriers for people just getting on in their life, particularly through lockdown at the time. And now it's coming to an end after the 3 years. I'm helping them with an end of year sort of celebratory event. My thing is planning events really. I love creating exciting sort of experiences for people, so that's my sort of role in it, but can't take credit for the previous 3 years at all.
I loved them. I've been to a couple of them, and I just love the energy and that you bring to the meetings, and just sometimes a different way of looking at things, because there's like a Zoom meeting and then there's a Zoom meeting, and you really know how to get people to engage. and
Oh,
just been really fabulous.
it's really nice to hear that, because you doing your live now as well, and I know that you've done lots of sessions, your crafting sessions and things, and it's almost like particularly on Zoom, it's like talking into a dead space, isn't it? Because it's just you I'm just on my dining room table in the middle of my house. It's just me on my own, and you don't get the same feedback as when you're in a room with people. It's not very often that you have 20 people staring back at you all at once. You wouldn't get that in a room, would you? So it's
and the
really
mute
strange.
button, isn't it? It's like the mute button is. I very often get told I'm terrible for butting in, and I'm so terrible at it. And I really struggled initially, because when you're, I don't know, I'm part of a big family. It's like a big Greek wedding type house, and if you don't shout, no one hears you. So then when you go into an office, it's sort of like, I really find it hard, because it's also being dyslexic, you've got to get it out, because if you don't get it out, you forget, and then this idea that you might have had is gone. So I've done it. I'm still working on it, but I'm getting there. But it's like culture difference. And I tried to explain it to Marie and Creddy, and I think they kind of get it. And I think I put a lot of pressure on myself as well. I personally, and with the dyslexia, but now I'm open about my dyslexia, and I've sort of said about that, they're obviously used to having, everyone has their say, and you take turns. I kind of didn't know the efficacy of an office, to be honest. I'd come in there, I'd be all noisy, they'd be all on their computers, and I'm like, oh dear, I think I'm giving them a headache, I think I better go. But I've really learned, I think what I'd say is we've met in the middle now.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's a whole new world, isn't it, and a whole new thing to learn. But I've we were talking just earlier about loving all of the background stuff, and I've loved that. Just setting them up and learning a new skill like that, and the challenge of it's kept my mind ticking, and the new challenge of how to engage people online is totally different to in the real world, and how can I go about that? So yeah, I've really sort of welcomed that
Canva's
change
amazing, isn't it? Canva is like, I'm loving it as a visual person. Canva is like I was saying to you earlier, before I joined Creddy, I didn't use emails very well. I give a fake email so people didn't email me. I didn't know how to use how to do appointments or anything like that. And I just can't believe I'm using Zoom. When I'm talking to people that know a bit about tech, I feel like I understand. And I just think in 12 months' time, my journey has just been, I feel like I have choices now. The technology, and I know, like, I suppose it's one of the positives in COVID. I now feel we're reaching people perhaps in a different way compared to before, because there is lots of positives in COVID.
There are, yeah. I mean, take the camp, for example. So you're joining the Eden camp from next month, and there are a lot of people that tell us that previously camps would be held down at Cornwall. We'd pay for people; they'd come from Friday to Monday. They'd have a great time, and then from all over the UK, 60 people per camp. And because of COVID, we've had to take that online, but we all saw that as a negative, and we were like, how on earth are we going to make that happen? You can't change the experience that people have at the Eden Project. But so many people have said that it would not have been possible to get to Cornwall. I mean, it's the other end of the UK from wherever you are. It feels like the other end of the world to travel down there, and so many people wouldn't have made it possible. And so the online version has made that possible, to the point where I think coming back out of COVID, that a lot of organizations might take that bridging approach where they do a little bit of online stuff, because it does reach a new audience, and then keep the in-person stuff as well.
Oh, totally. I sort of think about my job and the opportunities I'm getting to learn online now that I wouldn't have had beforehand. And as a parent carer, I probably wouldn't have been able to come and do the camp. Yet I am now in this way. So I suppose it's almost like speaking to two different audiences, but still trying to, I do see, they call it blended, sort of moving out of COVID, really. We were talking, I still want to be part of my meeting, so I'm part of Rank and Flecky Go and Kevin Goyd, if I think I said that right. and a lot of our learning has been meeting up every week. And I've just said, oh, can I still keep coming, because the learning has been phenomenal, you know. And they just said, oh, well, they hope they keep it online, because we wouldn't be able to meet as a group if it wasn't for online. So it's I suppose it's just trying to take the positives, but I do know that there is people that's missing out in COVID, and you know, I know from Creddy, it's how do you reach them people in COVID? I suppose it's a bit like flipping it the other way. You know, some people weren't able to access things, but they can now online. So it's really tough for some people that don't have the technology.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, things like StreamYard, for example, have helped, haven't they? Because a lot of people aren't on Facebook, and a lot of advertising goes on via Facebook, doesn't it, for online events? But people miss that. But what I've really liked about StreamYard is that you don't have to have the Facebook account for that. But most people, particularly older people, still have their email accounts, and that's kind of all. If you've got that and you've got the camera and the microphone, then you can access StreamYard and you know, chat to other people on this medium instead. But it's the same thing, isn't it? The variety, you know, you have to have a variety in order to reach everybody, and then sort of accepting that you're never gonna reach everybody. When we were when COVID first struck, I joined just the local street level COVID group, you know, doing shopping for people and things. And to be honest, that kind of saved my life during that time, because I was really struggling with what on earth was I going to do in the house all day long, you know? So that helped me more than it did the people that I was shopping for. And you know, we did the door-to-door postal deliveries with a letter, and unless we were able to go back to that all of the time, it's absolutely impossible to reach everybody all of the time, isn't it?
I suppose you just can't be, and that's a bit what I've learned in some of my courses. You can't be all things to all people, because then they get confused. And I suppose what they do try and have been teaching me is sort of more on the business side, but it's really helpful for the work that I'm doing with the Bubble Hub. It's really niche down to that one, they call it an avatar, that one avatar that would want whatever it is that you got, because then it just makes it much easier for people to understand what you're about. Because sometimes if you're all things to all people, that's really confusing too.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. My motto for this time has always been Jack of all trades and master of none, you know, because you just, you know, you've learned Zoom, you've learned StreamYard, you've learned the face-to-face stuff, you've learned this, you've learned that, you've tried to get involved in all sorts of things, and you know, that's kind of what I love. But it's really hard to, you know, there are still people that I think, what would I have to do to get you out of the door to take part in something? But that's still, I still want to keep that desire, because that's what keeps you sort of moving on, isn't it? And thinking all of the time, what can I do? What can I do?
And I suppose, like, so these are quotes, they're not my quotes. It's sort of like, you've got to do as well what makes your heart sing, haven't you? Because then it's not like a job then, is it? You know, I suppose when you're thinking of the people that, you know, sort of thinking, reflecting on the Bubble Hub, you know, what makes my heart sing that I would do for nothing, and you know, I want to get out of bed for. And also for me, it's really trying to think about, like, what value can I bring to people? What is sort of my sort of special area that sort of makes it that people want to come and have a chat with me about different things? And it kind of always comes back to Polly. All roads lead back to Polly. Because in theory, I've changed my whole life for her, and I'm curious about learning different things, you know.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, when I work with volunteers with Eden, I always say that whatever project people are starting up, it has to make your, you know, soul light up first and foremost, regardless of you know, spending the time and energy that people do to engage others in that thing. It has to work for you and your values, because you have to look after yourself first in order to look after, you know, you can't pour from an empty cup, that thing. And I think it's the same for energy and passion, that if you're not in it, then you can't sort of share that with others. And then sort of secondary to that, I try to and get into other people's minds and think, what is it that makes you passionate? And I kind of don't mind what that is. It's the getting up and doing something that you know, really fires me up. So when I put on just local events, I really try to do a variety of things, not because I'm really into them. My thing is sold just by doing the event. I love that in itself, but I try to do the variety to try and get that whole spectrum of people involved in some kind of way, and hope that if they come out once, then they're more likely to come out again to do something else the next time.
Well, and you do a lot of things, like your Facebook page or the Elam is just packed full of stuff, you know. And I suppose once someone's done something for you once and then you're doing another project, they're likely to come back again, aren't they? You know, if they,
Yes, confidence, isn't it? Confidence. I talk about when we were planning the lift me up session, my friends who helped me to do it were laughing at me because I used the tiers that we have. We're in tier 1, lockdown, tier 2, and all of that. I kind of have that approach for getting people involved as well, and they always say, "Oh no, she's entering tier 5. Quick, hide behind the door. She's going to get us involved in something." But I always think that if somebody the first time, wants to offer a raffle prize, that's something tangible that they can give, and they feel that they're worthy, that they've really helped. But that very act of giving something across is a contribution, and then the next time they might be up for being behind the stall that sells the raffle tickets, and I always think of it like that there are different ways in for people, and we have to crack what that first way in is.
I thinking back to that, I think I started off giving loads before I started Creddy, and I sort of almost like blagged myself a job in a way, really, because I was because I wasn't understanding the world that we were in with Polly. Where I was sort of wasn't enriching our life, shall I say. So I started going out to every meeting going around respite or anything like that. And I suppose the most active thing that people done which enticed me was I actually for the first time felt listened to and I felt heard. And that was so empowering. And in theory, that didn't cost nothing.
Yeah.
They listened and they reflected. And another moment I had with Jenny, she come around my house, and when I sort of spilled, I'm useless, I'm worthless, there's no value to my life, when you're having one of them days, I'm quitting everything, I'm all I am is a carer to my daughter. She started saying all these really posh words of, you're a multidisciplinary, you brought a multidisciplinary to team, you've got all of your support, and loads of other words that I don't even think I could say. And I was like, wow, that person sounds really amazing, but you're not talking about me. And now looking at the training that I've done, I realised that actually she was just reflecting back in a different way what I told her. But I didn't believe it at the time. And it took me a long time to realise that they were talking about, it really was me. She wasn't lying. She wasn't trying to make me feel better. She just reflected back what I said, but with some different words. And when I go back to that, like many, many, many times, and I just, for any carers out there, right, for when I work one-to-one with Creddy, it is so valuable because you just actually feel heard. You're listened to, you're heard, and it is what matters to you. And I just think I've so loved my job because little Betty tells me you do a bit of work with Creddy as well.
Yeah. It sounds terrible. It's like This Is Your Life thing. It sounds much more grand, much more grand than it actually is. So I only work part-time for Eden, so that's what gives me the time to do the other stuff. I'm far from a Wonder Woman, what you feel like you've painted me out to be, Mandy, but it's not like that at all. So yeah, I'm part-time with Eden, which means I've got some spare time to do some other bits and pieces. So Connected Generation is one of them. I just do a couple of hours a week, and then I help Creddy with the eye care card. Really, again, it's about creating that opening space for people to break down the barriers of what's getting in the way to help them. So I see the eye care card as a tool. It does offer some discounts at businesses and local shops. It's not right now, but as soon as they're open again, we'll be working on that. But really, it's a hook to help carers engage with their community. That's how I see it, and also a way of helping those businesses and shops to thrive as well, because they're missing out from a lot of wonderful people coming and spending money with them by because carers have those extra needs of time is an issue, and money can be an issue, and we see the card as sort of that hook to sort of break down those barriers.
So the eye care card then, so in a nutshell, I know I've sort of been on the fringes of the eye care card, and in some of the meetings. But what would you say the benefit to a carer would be in sort of like what an iCare card actually is?
Yeah, so during COVID, it's sort of taken a life of its own. So when it first came out, it was about providing carers with local sort of discounts and I suppose incentives to shop at certain places in town. Really, behind all of that, I mean, the hook is the discount, but really it's to show appreciation and an awareness of the value that unpaid carers have in our community. They're just serving such a huge credit to everybody. So it's about appreciation and recognition, and we show that by offering some discounts so that we break down those barriers. But the barrier is really connecting people with their community, because I see if somebody is going in to a hairdresser's more regularly because they're getting a discount, they're getting a relationship with their hairdresser, and that person then knows them in their town and their family. The same with the butchers, so the discount is the way in, but actually it's about creating those relationships with the community. During COVID, it's also served as an ID card, because that was another barrier that people weren't being recognized if they were out supporting a loved one to go on a walk. They were being stopped by the police, we heard, for being out and with somebody else, and so they had the ID card to be able to show that they were a carer.
And for the young carers as well, wasn't it? I think that they're now starting to try and see ways of supporting young carers, because I don't know about you, but I heard a few stories of young carers sort of not always feeling very welcome when they go to places when they're the only one that can go shopping. So I think it's started to support with that, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And prescriptions, picking up prescriptions as well. And, in shops, it was really helping people to understand, why they were buying, more than certain things, or and why they're picking up prescriptions, that sort of thing. So that it's kind of took a life of its own. So it's become that element as well. And then the third element is supporting those businesses to get up and running again. I'm very conscious that a lot of businesses and organizations are on their knees because they physically haven't been able to open. So if we can work with them to help them thrive as well. The strapline of the whole iCare card is creating a supportive and thriving community together. So it's about everybody sort of giving so that we all thrive, whether it's a business, a carer, or another shop.
I just I kitted all my people in my family with the iCare card, because I think I only used it a couple of times, but what I used it for is often we didn't want to be in the shop long. Obviously, we didn't want to mix with too many people. And obviously, when you got your iCare card, some of the places made it available so you could go to the front of the queue and you could go straight in. And for the first time being a carer, you didn't feel like you wanted to hide away. Like you really made me feel so important. And actually, it was just the fact that people had seen the card, they'd acknowledged you were a carer, and so it was really valuable that all of my family had one. So we limited the amount of time that we were in the shop to be able to just go in. And obviously, like if I go anywhere, a lot of the stuff I do with my daughter, I'm the only one that does it. So if I was to go, I really need to go and come back as quick as I can. So I've just seen that element for me has been like, money can't put a value on that. It was just really, and it was an element I never really sort of thought of, because I don't mind paying for things for myself. I wouldn't particularly need a discount, but the value was just some of the simple things in COVID that, it's one of the memories I'll take from COVID, really. I probably wouldn't have had the card if it wasn't for the Tesco's, and now I made sure that anyone that is a carer to Polly has one, and it's really nice. It's a bit of ID as well, isn't it? Has your picture on. It just does really feel like a bit of ID, and like you said, that acknowledgement of being a carer.
Yeah, exactly. And the freedom for that carer to use it in a way that suits them, whether they need it for ID or whether they need it for the shops, or whether it's the discount that appeals to them. It's whatever. It's sort of a one size fits all, if you like, and make it work for you in the way that you need it to. And that's been going for some time, and my role was really to kind of ignite it a bit more. So we've done a fresh logo and a fresh card. So the whole thing will launch in Powys as the new look on the 16th of March as part of Young Carers Awareness
I've looked
Day.
at some of the paperwork, and I just think had it got some of Sally's pictures on it?
Yeah,
It looked really good. It looked really good. And I suppose it just and because there was two elements, wasn't there? There was one for a young carer and one for a carer, but it's really nice to explain, because I suppose you see the eye care card and say, oh, what's that about, and how would that help me, and all these sort of curious questions around it. So it's been really nice to really sort of highlight some of these things and what they're about, really, because if I see stuff in writing, well, it's trying to do things all the way, because I know not everybody's like me with a dyslexic brain that has to be visual. Some people really appreciate things in writing, so I suppose it's just trying to speak realistically to as many people as you can across different platforms. And I've had a bit of a learning curve on that as well, because it's made me realise, I just try and put him into perspective often, how dyslexic feels for me to somebody who perhaps is really good at writing or can do emails. It's like, I would much prefer to go on a live and tell you all about the different things I'm doing, but you try and get me to put it in an email, and I could be spending a week putting it in that email, and I'd find it really uncomfortable. So it's just, it's that balance, isn't it, really? That I know we can't speak to all people about all things, but if we work to our strengths and work collaboratively with people, it's a good start.
Yeah, I mean the new leaflet, for example, for the eye care card has all of the written stuff on it that you'd normally expect, but it has those lovely images on it as well, and an actual image of the card so people know what to expect. But also with the return form, we tried to get rid of it. Said on there about applying by email and things, but I've just done a simple thing that people cut out, and it's got the free post credit thing on the back, and it just says to request a call back from us, and then you put your phone number on it, and that's it, and then you send that in. So it cuts all of that, so people can actually have a conversation about it.
Yes, I suppose, like, thinking as a carer myself, very often if it's not really easy, we don't do it, because you have to often fill in these essays when you're looking after somebody, and if it's not really easy, it kind of often gets forgotten about. But I love, I did have one about it. They look really colourful, really inviting. If I was a young carer, I'd be intrigued. I love the pictures, and it's just, it's really nice because the logo as well. I love the logo. I think I was in some of the planning stages, because it's like a jigsaw puzzle, isn't it? All the way around with just one at a place, and I look forward to working with you guys more on that, of developing it in the next stages and just sort of getting out there.
Excellent. The next stage will be the businesses then, and how to make it work for them, and feeling part of it as a whole community. So yeah.
So what's next for Sam then? As if you haven't got enough to do.
So yeah, I mean the community camp starts on the 1st of March, and that'll be a month-long thing. So that's next, and then after that it's straight into the big lunch, which is the first weekend of June. So all of our sort of efforts will be into that from sort of 1st of April onwards. We'd have sort of a 2-month lead in on that, and then personally wise, we are on the back of the Lift Me Up stuff. Myself and the gang of friends that helped with that, we'd like to do a weekly StreamYard session with somebody local each time. So we're pulling together a list of people that we think would be interesting to interview from Llandrindod, and and hopefully we'll get something like that sorted.
Oh, you guys did so well, because from what I see, from idea to doing it really wasn't that long, especially when you're thinking of COVID. I've thoroughly enjoyed all of the different elements of it, and the different people you have on there. And exciting to see what you guys do next, really.
Thank you. And likewise, I'm always on Bubble Hub and looking at all of your lives, Mandy, and taking part in that. And the craft sessions that you've got going is amazing. I see that you've made a link with Sarah now at Help the Homeless, and she's into crafting as well. That's a match made in heaven.
It's really trying to if someone else is doing it, you know, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. So part of what I want to do with the Bubble Hub is just really, you know, support other people as well, and this collaborative working together, you know, really, and just pulling things together. And you know, I'm all about what can we do for nothing first, you know. But I think we're doing similar things, but different, if that makes sense. So I'm really looking forward to meeting up and having a good chinwag and seeing where we're both at and see what elements we can bring to each of the projects. Because, like, I suppose I'm looking at it from a children's disability sort of way, and you know, her with the help the homeless is a different way, but we cross over on so many things. You know, we live local, we enjoy the same things, and on a lot of level, you know, we're trying to often help the same people. So I'm all for, you know, what we can do for nothing, but obviously often there is an element of money. But you know, isn't it amazing if you can just get people together and what can happen for nothing first, and then
it's huge. Yeah. And you know, even for you two to get excited with one another is, you know, is an energy riser for the both of you as well, because you know, giving your time up to do stuff, it can often feel like a really lonely place if you feel like you're the only one pushing the agenda all of the time and trying to make stuff happen. But so to meet somebody like-minded that just gets it without even having to explain, and you just sort of, you know, whip out ideas together is you know, a win in itself, isn't it?
definitely, because I'm a sort of person that thinks I'm a person of abundance. You know, I don't, for me, I wouldn't look at it. I mean, other people might look at it as competition, but aren't we better together? And I think that's what being with Rank has really taught me, you know, what we can do together is, you know, like you said, if we can do it together and run it together, you know, it could be separate, but offering it different times and different ways, you know. So I'm really looking forward to some conversations around that. But it's like everything, COVID sort of gets in the way a bit, because she's made some kind offers of me being able to go to the hub, but obviously with my daughter and us sort of trying to shield and limiting it, it's just not yet. So I'm really looking forward to the time where COVID goes away and we can really just sort of collaborate a bit more.
Yeah, here.
Thank you so much for your time. Is there anything that you'd like to add?
No, just thank you. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. It's been lovely to chat. Just, yeah, that's been amazing just in itself. Just to, yeah, share ideas and chat with you about what you're doing as well. It's been great. Thank you, Mandy.
No, thank you so much. So if anyone wants to get in contact with you for any of the work that you're doing, how would they get in contact with you?
Sure. So I'm on Facebook and open to people messaging me on there. So it's my posh name on there is Samantha Evans, but don't call me Samantha. That's saved for my mum when I'm in trouble. Or if it's an Eden Project thing, then my email address is sevans@edenproject.com.
Oh, well, thank you very much for coming and joining me with my experiment on StreamYard.
You're welcome.
I'll say goodbye to everybody.
All right.
And see you all soon.
Bye.